You have bought the early access of Path of Exile 2, or maybe you fought someone on Craigslist for a key. After you went through the story twice, you entered Endgame and now you're lost. Or maybe you just wanted to know what the Endgame is all about. Well, I'm here to help you, but massive spoiler warning to anyone who wants to play Path of Exile 2 completely blind in the future or hasn't entered the endgame yet. In this video, I will be going over the endgame systems, some content that is currently available, and my ups and downs with the Atlas since leak launch. Starting off right after entering the endgame, when Doryani tells us to clean up the corruption. TLDR, kill monsters. Alright, cool. On the Atlas, you find lots of spots. These spots are areas that are randomly generated, but so is the entire Atlas. How to enter these areas? Because you probably wanna kill some mobs to get big loot. For this, you'll need a Waystone. Daniel, add a Waystone in post. Wow! Doryani should give you a single Waystone for free at the start of the endgame. You can also buy more in the shop. The first tier is always available for 5,000 gold, so don't worry if you run out of Waystones. You can open an area by activating the map device, choosing an area of your choice, putting the Waystone in, and clicking Traverse. Now it's time to enter one of the 6 portals. The Endgame Quest. Currently, the Endgame Quest is pretty bare bones, but should help you to slowly get to the pinnacle bosses. Waystones have tiers, as you see right here. The Waystone is the key to get into the areas, but you can only use a Waystone once. And the Endgame Quest is to do many Waystones, specifically 10 tier 1 maps, 10 tier 2 maps, and I think you can see where this is going. The quest itself should say tier 1 plus in the quest overview, which means you can actually run tier 3 Waystones or even tier 7 Waystones if you want to finish that quest. Keep in mind, the higher the tier of the Waystone, the higher the monster level, which increases the difficulty. But also loot, oh yeah. I don't know why I'm suddenly a villain. In the end, you will need to run 10 tier 15 Waystones, and all those quests give you exactly 2 Atlas skill points. I will briefly go over this, but the Atlas passive tree allows you to maximize your loot in the endgame. But you only receive the middle part by doing the basic quests. If you wanted to get the points on the smaller trees to the side, I will leave a link down below to a guide that explains this further. But the TLDR is you have to defeat pretty strong bosses to get points on the smaller trees on the side. But I'm sure you'll figure it out if you experiment a little bit. Modifying Waystones. You can modify the Waystones same as with your item or gear that you are wearing. A transmute and augmentation orb is probably the way to go at first, and later on you could also use an alchemy orb. Keep in mind, if you hold Alt on your keyboard, you can see what type of modifiers they are. Prefixes are always positive and suffixes are always negative. So if you hit a prefix or positive modifier, like increased experience or extra gold, you might think, why add a negative modifier now? Well, the way to get even more Waystones and have a chance to get a higher tier Waystone is to actually add negative modifiers or suffixes. So in the end, you want a balance of both positive and negative modifiers. Choosing an area. Which area you want to run is totally up to you. Okay, that doesn't really help you. For me, I don't care too much about the name of the map, which matters when it comes to the layout. For example, a riverside map will always have a riverside-like layout. Same with Oasis Or the absolute worst area, Augury, right after Valve Factory. God, I hate them. I just do them all and I'm okay with it. Deep down, I'm not okay with it, but anyhow, if you don't like a certain area or look of an area, try to avoid that specific name on the Atlas before putting in your Waystone. But sometimes you gotta do it anyways, because it has the juice. Getting the juice. There are two options to get juicy areas, as in more rewarding ones. But this also increases the difficulty. First, run higher tiers of Waystones, starting at tier 1 and going up to tier 15. Second, if you want to push this even further, I highly recommend checking out the extra content that is available, which sadly involves the towers. More on those in a bit. With extra content, I mean Breach, Expedition, Ritual, and so on. They can be quite profitable, but also have their own difficulty and danger. You can find those thanks to their icons over the area on the Atlas. Hold the Alt key and hover over the icons to find out more about them. Really take your time with reading and figuring out the extra content. But I do have to mention the towers now. God, they're bad. It's early access, but let's pray they will change them soon. Towers are scattered throughout the Atlas. They are also areas, and at the end of them, you can activate the beacon. This pushes the fog away from the tower on the Atlas, giving you a better view of the surrounding area. If you ever played a Ubisoft game, you know how this works. I don't need to explain this to you. Now, seeing more on the Atlas, you can not only find more areas with more of these icons, but also are able to use those tablets that you may have found. Grab a tablet, and I highly recommend quickly crafting them with a transmutation and augmentation orb to add additional rewards. Now, take that tablet over to the map device, click the tower you just finished, plop it in, and activate it. Depending on the tablets, which there are a few, you'll see the same icon appear on some areas around the tower. This means you have now increased the potential rewards, or at least gave you the chance to encounter extra content. The build. You might wonder what build to play. This is partially subjective on what you enjoy, but it's also kind of not. Let me explain. This is a topic that I rarely heard other content creators talk about a few years ago, when I started to play more PoE 1. For example, you see a build from a guy with abs and it does amazing single target damage. Then you play the build yourself and realize you dislike how it plays or how the build interacts with the content you enjoy. This is less of a mistake by the content creators and more of a mistake by the player, or myself. After watching this though, this video right here, you will not make the same mistake I made. Thankfully, nowadays, creators like Sirgog do an amazing job not only telling you what you can farm in the endgame of Path of Exile 1, but also using which build. Without going too in-depth, because Path of Exile 2 doesn't really have a large variety of content yet, really think about what you like doing in the endgame right now. And then think about the build you have or want to play in the future. If you really love fighting hordes of monsters in Breach, but you have a slow attack or cast time in addition to no projectiles or low AoE, and this gets you killed, your build could be not good enough for that content. That doesn't mean you can't make it better though. Here's a quick example from my first and second build in Path of Exile 2. I started a witch character and doing the Raging Spirits build. The acts or the story part was fine and bosses were fairly easy. Mapping or running through the areas in the endgame was very slow and I could barely do any content to a degree I was happy with. I realized I wasn't having fun, and the few times I interacted with Breach, I really needed a better build if I wanted to do more Breach content and really clear the hordes of monsters, not just a few dozen. Thus, I am now a meta cuck again. Oh, for fuck's sake. I am playing a lightning arrow Deadeye that was totally not stolen by Fubgun, and I gotta say, I'm loving it. I deal way more damage, I run much faster through the maps, and this increases how many maps I can do per hour, and also increases how much currency I can make, and further improve my character. So this build fits what I generally like, but also fits the content like Breach a lot better. The conclusion. To summarize everything, Path of Exile 2's endgame has a variety of content that can be quite enjoyable, but also fairly difficult and a bit annoying to set up, which I didn't want to spoil in this video. In addition to that, there is quite a lot of content to play right now, and I can seriously not imagine going back to Path of Exile 1 without some headaches or RSI issues. WASD movement is so heckin' good. Oh my god. In the end, if you have fun playing your build, that's what matters. Doesn't matter if someone is running at ultra speed around the map, as long as you enjoy yourself playing the game. Of course, if you need items from trade and their prices are fairly high, maybe look into how you can adapt your build or strategy to make more currency. Or, you can also play SSF, but I do love trade too much. I will leave a few links to great build guides down below in the comments and description. I hope I helped you out a little bit in the endgame of Path of Exile 2. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, subscribe, and don't forget to stay hydrated, gamers.